All right, what's up, Smashers? Hanging out at Delta. Guess what? This is a super special video. You know why? It's going out to Heather Brown. Why? Because she's a badass games athlete. She's a killer coach here, and she's got some hyperextension and squat issues that we're going to take care of, because if she has them, so do you guys. I guarantee it. I'll make sure I don't interrupt the class too much, because everybody's warming up for a really brutal run, snatch, burpee over the bar. Oh, by the way, listen, when it says strong AF, if you don't know what AF means, you need to look it up. I'm not going to say it. You're not going to get me to say it. But this is Joe DeFranco. So if you're not following his industrial strength stuff, you need to check him out. You know what? Just log on to his site and join. The guy's a stud. Super good friend of mine. Insanely smart. And you know what? He's a good bald guy. He's got a great barber. So good old Jersey boy. So you know what? Give him a follow, because he knows what he's talking about. Love the guy. So we're talking about hyperextension. The problem is, when I was just talking to Heather, it's a good example. I just realized I have these things on my thumbs still from snatching. So when I was talking to Heather, hyperextension is a really big problem, but it's going to affect your squat. So yeah, I'm getting these off. I'll throw them in my pocket. They'll probably show up in my laundry later, wrap around my washing machine. But look at that. That's like a weird snatch injury, huh? How'd that happen? It's weird, huh? Weird. So anyway, when you're doing your, when you're getting into the bottom of the squat, whether it's in a snatch or whether it's just a regular squat, it doesn't matter where your toes are. So if you look at my friend Donnie Thompson, super smart, huge man, he made a great point about a squat. I'm going to say this 1,000 times, and that is when you squat, get your feet comfortable wherever they're supposed to be, and then squat away from your knees. It's that easy. Stop getting fancy with your squat. Just squat away from your knees. Push the knees out, squat away from your knees. That's all you got to do. But if you're squatting and you're ending up in a hyperextended position in your squat, what's going to happen is you're going to end up in a hyperextended position over top. And we can do all these fancy schmancy programs and all kinds of builds and do, you know, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 weeks of how to get out of hyperextension and all this bullshit. But you know, there's so much more going on that's so much easier to fix. Usually it's a displacement of where your power is going, so you have a balance issue in your pelvis. Everybody thinks it's tight hip flexors. No, it's probably weak hip flexors, which means that the hamstrings are going to take over. Remember, we have agonists and antagonists, so there's going to be an argument, and it's going to drag you into hyperextension, and then the hamstrings are going to fight. I guarantee you, if you go to try and touch your toes, your hamstrings are going to be tight if you only pivot at the hips. If you round out at your lumbar spine, then you show lumbar mobility. That means nothing. I want to see hamstring mobility. So we're going to unload the hamstrings, we're going to fix the hips, I'm going to clean up the TFL and open up the external rotation of the pelvis, and then we're going to strengthen up those hip flexors, all in one super easy drill to fix your squat. How's that sound? Pretty good? All right, so this is what we're going to do. We'll grab my awesome camera stand. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a band, we're going to do a standard figure 4, but it's going to be a figure 4 with what I call a drag. So a figure 4 with a banded drag is a big deal, because it's going to open up more than just the, you know what, Kaylin always gets mad at me. So I'll go to this side so there's no glare. Got to make my media team happy, because, hey, if you don't know, Kaylin's a stud. He's a good dude. Real good old American boy. Smart son of a bitch. And just a good guy. Takes care of me. So you're going to kick into the band. Then you're going to bring the foot across like this. You're going to come up. You're going to bring the band all the way to the outside. So if you look, and you see that I'm completely out of the frame, this is your position. So the band is dragging the hip open. I want that. So I'm in a figure 4 position. The foot is over here on the outside of the knee. Band is dragging. The band is at the same height on the rig. Hands out. I don't want you to fight this. I want you to let the band peel open the hip. That's the first part. The second part's worse. So this is part 1. Let the band open up and hang out here for 2 minutes. Once you've been at 2 minutes in this position, you're going to take your foot and you're going to roll it all the way over to the outside. The band is still dragging the knee open. You're going to hang out in this position for another 2 minutes. That's number 1. Super important, because that's going to unload not only the TFL, but it's also going to unload the glute, the hip capsule, and all kinds of other stuff that's really binding up, forcing what's called a reflex contraction of everything else, dragging you into hyperextension when you go overhead. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we're going to unload the hamstrings, but the hamstrings properly. So we get on either side of a rig, a door, doesn't really matter, whatever you want. Kick the leg up like this. So now I'm going to flatten out my low back against the ground. I'm going to take my butt, drive it into the rig. So now I'm completely anchored. Knee is locked out, foot is dorsiflexed, and then without kicking over the chalk bucket over there, I'm going to straighten out the opposite leg. If I have to, I'm going to grab onto here to really pull myself in tight, hang out like this, 2 minutes. That's number 2. Do both sides. Don't just do one side. Come on, man. All right. Number 3 is going to be unloading the hip flexors, and you know you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the couch stretch, but this is a really easy routine to do to help you with hyperextension. Kick in like this. This hyperextension jacks up your SI joints and jacks up your lumbar spine because it loads up shear on those lumbar vertebrae, and that's important. You want to unload that stuff. So all the way perpendicular to the ground. Really, I mean, honestly, paste yourself up against the wall. No hyperextension here. I do that all the time, but no hyperextension. Really crank in here, squeeze the glutes and push open, drive that hip open, hang out like this, 2 minutes. That's number 3. Number 4 is what I'm gonna call hip flexor strengthening drill 101. It seems really easy, really important. So you're gonna get up against the wall like this. So I'll go like this so you can see. I'm up against the wall. My foot is up at the wall. I'm using the wall for stability. I'm gonna be up real tall. The important part is you need to squeeze your glutes, and then you're just gonna raise the knee. Foot stays dorsiflex, so raise the knee, and then back down. Raise the knee, hold for 1 second, back down. Up, hold for 1 second, back down. 3 sets of 10. I promise you it's gonna be harder than you think, and one side's gonna be more tight than the other. All right, that's number 4. Number 5 is a fun one. We're gonna do what's called a front rack hold. When you're doing a front rack hold, the big thing you wanna do is I'm gonna grab a barbell, see if I can get this with all one hand. So grab a barbell without eating it, right? We're gonna put the phone down like this. So my phone is on my camera stand, so we gotta change it around. So when you're doing the front rack hold, the big thing about the front rack hold is I just want you to stay at the rack. You don't have to move back, don't step back. I'm gonna show you the right position to do it in because everybody does them wrong. So when you're doing your front rack hold, don't worry about arm position, worry about glute and low back position. So if I show you here, we're gonna take a barbell, right? And then catch yourself in the chin, just like that. Which if you didn't see, just caught myself in the chin. You're gonna edit that out. Nope, gonna leave it in. So we're gonna grab the front rack slightly wider than you normally would grab. I want you to come all the way up. This is all you're gonna do. You're not gonna step back, you're not gonna do anything fancy. So really, front rack, get in the front rack, stand up. When you're in this position, everybody wants to hyperextend your core. You're gonna do this for 2 minutes, but I want you to concentrate on squeezing your glutes. So squeeze your butt as hard as you can, feet are underneath your hips, and then suck the belly button in. So you're almost over-exaggerating a really contracted ab that you're trying to show everybody at the beach what your stomach looks like. Hang out like this for 2 minutes. When you're done, dump it. That's gonna work on strengthening your entire midline under load and retrain your brain to keep dumping from to prevent you from dumping into the hyperextended position because you're training everything all at once instead of doing a bunch of really fancy movements. You wanna get out of hyperextension? That's how you do it. Now, by the way, the weight you're gonna use for this, use about 100% of your 1 rep front squat max. You're not moving it, you're just standing there. So remember, stand up in the rack, hold it, glute squeezed, abdomen tight, hang out real tight, avoid hyperextension, video yourself if you need to. And if you're not following Joe, give him a follow. Hey listen, I'm Trev, hanging out at Delta, SmashweRx, killing hyperextension, knocking it out of the park. I'll check you guys out tomorrow.